They should sit in the back. Give those seats to someone who paid for them properly. That's what the woman whispered loud enough for the lounge to hear, before demanding that 2 black twins give up their first-class seats. But what she didn't know is that these women weren't just passengers. They were CEOs. And one of them had their father on speed dial. And 5 minutes later, that one phone call didn't just cost her a seat. It cost careers, contracts, and an entire firm's reputation. This isn't just a story about a plane. It's about karma, fueled by dignity, and delivered by daughters who knew their worth. A hush falls over the VIP lounge, the kind of quiet that's heavy with unspoken words. 2 young women, identical twins, are asked to give up their first-class seats for a woman who believes her comfort is more important than their tickets. But this is no ordinary flight, and these are no ordinary passengers. In the next few minutes, a single phone call won't just change their travel plans. It will unleash a storm of consequences that will dismantle careers and expose a rot that runs deeper than anyone imagines. What happens when entitlement meets its match? Stick around, because this story of karma is just taking off. The hum of the Majestic Airlines VIP lounge at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport was a symphony of discreet privilege. The clinking of ice and glasses, the soft murmur of conversations about stock options and summer homes in the Hamptons, the whisper of expensive fabrics as people moved through the serene space. It was a world away from the controlled chaos of the main terminals. Seated in a pair of plush cream-colored armchairs near the expansive floor-to-ceiling windows were Maya and Nia Sterling. At 24, they were striking, identical twins. They shared the same high cheekbones, luminous dark skin, and eyes the color of rich dark chocolate. Their long, intricate braids were adorned with subtle gold cuffs that caught the light. Today they were dressed in casually luxurious travel attire, matching cashmere joggers and sweaters in a soft camel color, paired with pristine white sneakers that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. They weren't just beautiful, they were brilliant. Both had graduated summa cum laude from Spelman College and had recently launched their own successful fintech startup, Kismet, an innovative app designed to promote financial literacy within underserved communities. This trip to London was a celebration and a business opportunity rolled into one. They were the keynote speakers at the Global Innovators Summit, a massive honor that would place their company on the international stage. Their journey had been meticulously planned. First-class tickets on Majestic Airlines, a carrier known for its unparalleled luxury and service. They had used the miles accumulated on their corporate cards, a satisfying testament to their hard work. The VIP lounge was just the first taste of the premium experience they had earned. Maya glanced at her watch, a sleek minimalist design that was a gift from their parents upon their graduation. "Boarding should start in about 20 minutes, she said, her voice a smooth, calm melody that was a perfect match for her sister's slightly higher, more energetic tone. Nia was scrolling through the final draft of their presentation on her tablet, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I just want to go over the section one more time. I have a feeling that question about blockchain integration is going to come up." "You've got this, Nye," Maya reassured her, reaching over to squeeze her sister's hand. "We've got all this." It was in this bubble of calm and focused anticipation that the first discordant note was struck. A woman, probably in her late 50s, with a helmet of perfectly coiffed blonde hair and a face that seemed permanently pinched in a look of mild disapproval, approached them. She was followed by a harriddle-looking gate agent, a young man named Tom, whose name tag was slightly askew. The blonde woman, who we'll call Caroline, was dripping in designer logos. Her handbag was a classic and ostentatious Louis Vuitton. Her scarf was Burberry. Her shoes were Gucci, and her scent was a cloying floral that seemed to invade their personal space before she even spoke. "Excuse me," Caroline said, her voice carrying the sharp, imperious tone of someone long accustomed to getting her way. She wasn't addressing the twins directly, but rather speaking at them, her gaze fixed somewhere just above their heads. Maya and Naya looked up, their expressions neutral but questioning. The gate agent, Tom, cleared his throat nervously. "Ma'am," he began, addressing Caroline, as I explained. "The flight is fully booked. There are no other seats available in first class." Caroline waved a dismissive hand, a jangle of gold bracelets accompanying the gesture. "That's ridiculous. I am a Platinum Elite member. I've been for 10 years. There are always seats." Her eyes finally landed on Maya and Nia, and a flicker of something, a calculated assessment, passed through them. "What about these two?" Tom's face padded slightly. He looked at the twins, then back at Caroline. A man caught in a deeply uncomfortable position. "These passengers are confirmed in their seats, ma'am. They are in 1A and 1B. "Well, they can move," Caroline stated, not as a question, but as a fact. "My husband is in 1C. We always travel together. I had to book late due to a family matter, and your incompetent booking system separated us. These girls can take my seat in business class. I'm sure they won't mind." The sheer, unadulterated entitlement of the statement hung in the air. The assumption was thick and suffocating that the twins' presence in first class was somehow less valid, less earned, and therefore easily negotiable. The phrase "these girls" was laced with a condescension that was impossible to miss. Maya felt a familiar hot surge of anger, but she tamped it down, replacing it with an icy calm she had perfected over years of navigating spaces where her presence was questioned. She was the diplomat, the cool head. Nia, on the other hand, was the fire. Her eyes narrowed, and she placed her tablet down on the table with a deliberate, sharp tap. "I'm sorry," Nia said, her voice deceptively sweet. "But I think we do mind. We booked these specific seats months ago." Caroline's perfectly plucked eyebrows shot up. She seemed genuinely shocked that they had spoken, let alone disagreed. "Well, I'm sure Majestic Airlines can offer you some compensation. Some travel vouchers, perhaps. It's really no trouble." "It's a great deal of trouble, actually," Maya cut in. Her tone is smooth as silk, but with an underlying thread of steel. "We have work to do on the flight, and we specifically chose these seats for the space and privacy. We have no intention of moving." A tense silence descended. A few other passengers in the lounge were now watching the exchange with undisguised interest. Tom, the gate agent, looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. He was out of his depth, a pawn in a game he didn't know the rules to. Caroline, however, was not one to be deterred. She turned her full attention to Tom, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial yet somehow still booming whisper. "Look, I don't want to make a scene, but this is a matter of customer loyalty. I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with this airline. Are you really going to prioritize them over me?" She gestured vaguely toward the twins, as if they were pieces of furniture. The them was a clear line in the sand. It was an us versus them moment, and the unspoken criteria for each group were glaringly obvious. Tom, desperate to plate the Platinum Elite member, made a fatal error in judgment. He turned to Maya and Nia, his expression pleading. "Ladies, I understand your position. I really do. But Mrs. Harrington," he gestured to Caroline, "is one of our most valued customers. We would be incredibly grateful if you would consider her offer. We can provide you with a $500 travel voucher each for your inconvenience. The offer was insulting. It wasn't about the money. It was about the principle. They were being asked to shrink themselves, to make themselves smaller, to accommodate someone else's privilege. Naya let out a short, sharp laugh that was devoid of any humor. $500 to give up the seats we paid for, to be moved to a lower class, all to appease this woman's sense of entitlement. You must be joking. There's no need to be rude, young lady. Caroline sniffed, clutching her Vuitton bag as if it were a shield. Before the situation could escalate further, a second airline employee arrived. This was a woman in her 40s, her uniform crisp, her demeanor radiating a sense of authority that Tom sorely lacked. Her name tag read, Susan Pfizer, Lounge Supervisor. "Is there a problem here?" Susan asked, her sharp eyes taking in the scene. The flustered gate agent, the indignant Caroline, and the two composed but clearly resolute young women. Caroline immediately launched into her tale of woe, embellishing it with details of her husband's supposed anxiety about flying alone and her own delicate constitution, which required her to be seated at the very front of the plane. She painted a picture of a loyal customer being grievously mistreated. Susan listened patiently, her expression unreadable. When Caroline had finished, she didn't immediately turn to the twins. Instead, she addressed her junior colleague. "Tom, what does the system say?" It says, seats 1A and 1B are confirmed for Miss Maya Sterling and Miss Nia Sterling." He stammered, "and Mrs. Harrington is confirmed in 9D business class." "I see," Susan said. She then turned to Caroline, her voice polite but firm. "Mrs. Harrington, I'm sorry for the mix-up with your booking, but we cannot forcibly move ticketed passengers from their assigned seats. These ladies are in their correct seats, and that is final." For a moment it seemed like this would be the end of it. But Caroline was a woman who saw rules as mere suggestions, obstacles to be bulldozed. A venomous look crossed her face. She leaned in towards Susan, her voice a low hiss. "I know how this works," she seethed, her voice now dripping with malice. "You have your diversity quotas to meet. I'm sure it looks wonderful to have them sitting at the front. A real photo opportunity for your corporate brochures. But I am the one who actually keeps you in business. You would do well to remember that." The accusation, so vile and so baseless, sucked the air out of the immediate vicinity. It was a direct, ugly assault, not just on the twins, but on Susan's professional integrity. Maya and Nia stared at Caroline, stunned into silence for a brief second by the sheer audacity of the woman's racism. The casual throwaway manner in which she had belittled their success, their very presence, was breathtaking. Susan Fisher's face, which had been a mask of professional neutrality, hardened into something resembling granite. Her voice, when she spoke, was several degrees colder. "Mrs. Harrington, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice. Your comments are inappropriate and offensive." "Offensive?" Caroline scoffed, now playing the victim. "I'm the one who's being offended. I'm being discriminated against because I'm not a diversity hire." This was it. The line had been crossed, stomped on, and set on fire. Naya, who had been clenching her fists in her lap, slowly relaxed them. She picked up her phone from the table. Her movements were calm and deliberate. "You know what?" she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "You're right. You are a valued customer, and as such I think you should take your complaints to the very top." Maya watched her twin, a slow smile spreading across her own face. She knew exactly what was coming. Caroline looked momentarily confused. That's exactly what I intend to do. I will be filing a formal complaint against all of you. No need to wait. Nia said, tapping a number into her phone. She put it on speaker for the entire, now silent lounge to hear. The phone rang once, twice, and then a deep, familiar voice answered. A voice that commanded attention, even through the small speaker. Nia, sweetheart. Everything okay? You're not supposed to be calling me right now. You're supposed to be sipping champagne, getting ready to conquer London. The twins. Father. Caroline rolled her eyes, a smirk playing on her lips. Oh, what's this, calling your daddy to complain? How adorable. Susan, the lounge supervisor, looked uneasy. She had defended the twins on principle, but bringing family into a customer service dispute was highly unorthodox. Nia ignored them both. Her eyes locked on Caroline's smug face. Hi, Dad. Sorry to bother you. We're having a small issue here at the airport in the Majestic Airlines VIP lounge. Majestic? Their father's voice sharpened with interest. What's the problem? Well, Nia began, her voice dripping with mock innocence. Maya and I were just asked to give up our first-class seats 1A and 1B. A woman here, a Mrs. Harrington, insists she's more important and that we should move to business class. There was a pause on the other end of the line, then a low chuckle. Is that so? And what reason did she give? Oh, the usual. Nia said, her gaze unwavering. That we were probably just a diversity initiative. That her money is what keeps the airline in business. The lounge supervisor, a Miss Fisher, tried to help, but Mrs. Harrington is persistent. She also mentioned something about our presence being a photo opportunity for the company's brochures. The silence on the other end of the phone was now heavy, profound. The atmosphere in the lounge had shifted. The air crackled with tension. Everyone was listening. Caroline's smirk began to falter. There was something in the confident, unhurried way Nia was conducting this conversation that was deeply unsettling. Finally, the voice came back on the line, and it was transformed. It was no longer the warm, affectionate tone of a father. It was the cold, incisive voice of a man who wielded immense power. Nia, he said, his words precise and chillingly calm. Put your phone on the table. Let me speak to the supervisor, Miss Fisher. Nia did as she was told. Susan Fisher. Her face, a mask of confusion and apprehension, leaned forward. This is Susan Fisher. Miss Fisher, the voice said, my name is Robert Sterling. I am the Executive Vice President and Head of Global Strategy for the Sterling Chanel conglomerate, and as of 3 months ago, my company acquired a 51% controlling stake in Majestic Airlines. A collective gasp went through the lounge. It was a soft, sibilant sound, like the air being released from 100 balloons at once. Tom, the gate agent, looked as if he might faint. His face had gone from pale to a ghostly white. Caroline Harrington's jaw literally dropped. The color drained from her face, leaving her perfectly applied makeup looking like a garish mask on a statue. Her Louis Vuitton bag slipped from her grasp and landed on the plush carpet with a soft, muffled thud. The voice on the phone continued each word, a hammer blow. I personally oversaw the acquisition. I am, for all intents and purposes, your boss's boss's boss. Now I have 2 daughters, 2 brilliant, hard-working young women who I believe you have just met, whom I am sending to London to represent another of our companies. I am looking at their booking right now on my screen. Paid for in full, confirmed months ago. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. So Miss Fisher. Robert Sterling continued, his voice now dangerously soft. I'd like you to explain to me in detail why a Platinum Elite member's sense of entitlement and her frankly disgusting racist commentary is being given more weight than the confirmed paid-for tickets of 2 of my passengers. Or, to put it another way, why is your team attempting to kick my daughters out of their seats? The silence that followed was absolute. The symphony of privilege had ceased. There was only the sound of a single, devastating question hanging in the air, awaiting an answer that could and would change everything. The story continues from the exact moment the bombshell dropped. The silence in the Majestic Airlines VIP lounge was no longer serene. It was suffocating. Every eye was fixed on the small phone sitting on the table from which the voice of Robert Sterling, the new de facto owner of the airline, had just laid waste to Caroline Harrington's world. Susan Fisher, the lounge supervisor, was frozen for a heartbeat. Her mind, trained to handle I-8 customers and logistical nightmares, struggled to process the seismic shift in the power dynamic. The entitled passenger she was managing wasn't just a nuisance. She had just insulted the daughters of the man who now owned the entire company. The young women she had defended on principle were the aces to the very airline she worked for. She swallowed hard, her professionalism kicking in like a well-oiled machine, albeit a machine that had just been hit by a truck. Mr. Sterling, she began, her voice remarkably steady, despite the tremor she felt in her hands. I apologize. There seems to have been a grave misunderstanding. There is no misunderstanding, Miss Fisher. Robert's voice cut through the speaker, sharp and clear. I heard Mrs. Harrington's comments quite clearly repeated by my daughter. Diversity initiative, photo opportunity. Am I quoting that correctly? Susan's eyes flickered towards Caroline, who was now a pathetic tableau of shock. Her mouth was still agape, her face a blotchy canvas of red and white. She looked utterly deflated. The blustering entitlement replaced by a dawning, sickening horror. Yes, sir, Susan said, her voice barely a whisper. That is what she said. And your other employee? Tom Robert continued, his tone relentless. He offered my daughters a paltry $500 voucher to acquiesce to this woman's racist demands. Is that also correct, Tom, who had been trying to blend into the expensive wallpaper, flinched as if he'd been physically struck? All he could manage was a weak, terrified nod. I see, Robert said. The 2 words were laden with a finality that was terrifying. Miss Fisher, I want you to do 3 things for me right now. First, you will personally escort my daughters to their seats 1 and 1B, and ensure that their pre-flight experience is from this moment forward flawless. Second, you will inform Mrs. Harrington that her ticket on this flight has been cancelled, effective immediately. Caroline let out a small, strangled gasp. You can't do that, she squeaked, her voice a caricature of its former imperious tone. I can, Robert's voice boomed from the phone. And I have. Her Platinum Elite status has also been revoked permanently. We will, of course, refund the full price of her ticket. We are not thieves, but Majestic Airlines has a zero-tolerance policy for the kind of behavior she has exhibited today. A policy that, as of this phone call, will be rigorously and unflinchingly enforced. He wasn't finished. The third thing, Miss Fisher, is for you and for Tom. You will both report to the Majestic Airlines corporate headquarters in Atlanta tomorrow morning at 9:00 a.m. sharp. You will ask for David Chan. He is my partner in the new CEO of this airline. He will be expecting you. He will be conducting a full review of this incident and the customer service protocols at this lounge. The implication was clear. This was not just about one incident. This was about a systemic failure. Tom looked like he was about to be physically ill. Susan, however, straightened her back. She had been caught in the crossfire, but she had, however weakly, tried to do the right thing. She met the invisible gaze of the man on the phone with a flicker of defiance. "Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice gaining a sliver of its former strength. "I understand. We will be there." "Good," Robert said. His tone softened almost imperceptibly as he addressed his daughters. "Maya, Nia. I'm sorry this happened. This is not the standard I expect. This is not the company I am building. Go and enjoy your flight. We'll talk when you land. I love you both." "We love you too, Dad," Maya said softly, a mix of pride, shock, and relief washing over her. The call ended, plunging the lounge back into a thick, awkward silence. The drama was over, but the fallout was just beginning. Susan Fisher was the first to move. She turned to Caroline Harrington, her expression now a mixture of pity and professional disdain. "Mrs. Harrington," she said, her voice crisp, "I believe you heard the man. Your ticket has been cancelled. I must ask you to leave the lounge. A member of our staff will escort you to the main terminal, where you can make alternative travel arrangements." The fight had completely gone out of Caroline. The bluster, the arrogance, it had all evaporated. She was just a woman in a designer scarf, stripped of her assumed power, facing a very public and very brutal humiliation. She fumbled to pick up her handbag, her hands shaking. She didn't look at the twins. She couldn't. The weight of their calm, observant gazes was too much to bear. As a junior staff member gently but firmly guided a dazed Caroline out of the lounge, the other passengers who had been shamelessly eavesdropping quickly averted their eyes and went back to their drinks and their phones, pretending they hadn't just witnessed a corporate execution. Susan then turned to Maya and Nia, her face etched with a deep, professional regret. Miss Sterling," she said, addressing them with a newfound, profound respect. "I am so deeply sorry for what you just experienced. It was unprofessional, unacceptable, and I take full responsibility for the failure of my team." "It wasn't your fault, Miss Fisher," Maya said kindly. "You tried to de-escalate the situation, but I didn't do enough." Susan countered, her eyes filled with a genuine remorse. "I should have shut it down immediately. I was too concerned with placating a valued customer and not concerned enough with protecting two other equally valued customers from harassment." Nia, who had been silent throughout the latter part of the exchange, nodded slowly. "The problem is that the system is built to reward the loudest, most demanding voices. The Caroline Harringtons of the world are used to getting their way, because they scream until they do. That is a system that is about to change," Susan said, a new resolve in her voice. "I can assure you of that." She then personally escorted the twins from the lounge and down the jet bridge, bypassing the rest of the boarding passengers, with a quiet, "Please excuse us." As they stepped onto the aircraft, the cabin crew, who had clearly already received a message, greeted them with an almost reverential difference. "Welcome aboard, Miss Sterling." Miss Sterling, the purser said, her smile wood and genuine. "We're so honored to have you flying with us today. Please let me show you to your seats." As they settled into the spacious pods of 1A and 1B, a flute of chilled vintage champagne was immediately placed in each of their hands. The purser leaned in conspiratorially. "Your father has already called ahead," she whispered. "He's upgraded the entire first-class cabin to the presidential service menu. The Dumperan is on ice, and the chef is preparing the caviar service as we speak." Maya and Nia looked at each other over the rims of their glasses a silent communication passing between them. It was a strange, bittersweet victory. They had stood their ground, and the consequences for their antagonist had been swift and severe. But the incident had left a sour taste in their mouths. It was a stark reminder that for all their success, for all their brilliance and hard work, their right to occupy a space could still be questioned in the ugliest of terms. As the plane pushed back from the gate, Naya looked out the window. She saw a lone figure being escorted out of the terminal by airport security. It was Caroline Harrington. Her posture slumped her designer outfit, looking cheap and out of place in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the public concourse. It was a pathetic sight, but Naya felt no pity, only a grim satisfaction. Karma, she thought, was sometimes a direct flight. But the story didn't end there. The ripples from that phone call were just beginning to spread. The next morning, in a sleek, glass-walled office on the top floor of a skyscraper in downtown Atlanta, Susan Pfizer and a visibly trembling Tom sat across a massive mahogany desk from David Chan. Chanel was the other half of the Sterling-Chanel conglomerate, where Robert Sterling was the visionary, the grand strategist. David Chan was the operator, the man who made the trains run on time, or in this case, the planes. He was a sharp, impeccably dressed man in his late 60s, with a reputation for being ruthless in his pursuit of efficiency and excellence. He had a tablet in front of him, which was playing the security footage from the VIP lounge. There was no audio, but the visuals were damning enough. They watched in silence as the entire drama unfolded. Caroline's aggressive approach, Tom's flustered appeasement, Susan's initial intervention, and finally the twins' calm, devastating phone call. When the video ended, Shan leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled under his chin. He looked at the two employees before him. "I've read the preliminary report," he said, his voice quiet, but carrying an immense weight. "I've spoken to Robert, and I've reviewed the customer service records for this lounge for the past 6 months. He slid a thick binder across the desk. "This isn't the first time something like this has happened, is it, Miss Fisher? Not the racism, perhaps, but the pattern. Elite members throwing their weight around, junior staff being intimidated, other passengers being inconvenienced to plate the whims of your most valued customers." Susan's face was pale. She knew it was true. The culture of appeasement had been ingrained long before she became supervisor. It was part of the airline's DNA, a holdover from the previous ownership. "No, sir," she admitted. "It's not." "And you, Tom," Shano said, turning his piercing gaze on the young man. "Your record shows 2 similar incidents where you bumped confirmed passengers to accommodate last-minute requests from high-status members. You were following what you thought was unwritten policy, correct? Keep the big spenders happy at all costs." Tom could only nod, his face a picture of misery. "Yes, sir. I thought that's what I was supposed to do." "What you were supposed to do," Chanel said, his voice rising with a controlled anger, "was follow the rules. Treat every passenger with respect. A ticket is a contract, it is not a suggestion. The notion that a person's net worth or their loyalty status gives them the right to harass other passengers is obscene, and it ends today." He stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the sprawling city. "Robert and I didn't buy this airline as a vanity project. We bought it because we saw an opportunity to build the best damn airline in the world. And that doesn't just mean having the newest planes or the most comfortable seats. It means having the best service. And the best service is rooted in one thing: respect." He turned back to face them. "As of today, the entire management team at the Hartsfield-Jackson VIP Lounge is being replaced. You included Miss Fisher." Susan's heart sank. She had expected a reprimand, perhaps a demotion, but termination. However, Chanel continued, "You are not being fired from the company. Your actions yesterday, while not perfect, showed a glimmer of integrity. You stood up to Mrs. Harrington before you knew who the Sterling twins were. That shows character, and I can work with character." He looked at her intently. "I'm reassigning you. You're going to be in charge of rewriting the customer service training manual for our entire global network of VIP lounges. You're going to build a new curriculum from the ground up, a curriculum based on the principle of equitable treatment for all passengers. You will use the recording of yesterday's incident with the audio as the primary case study in your training modules. You're going to turn this disgusting event into a lesson that every single Majestic employee will learn from." Susan was stunned. It was a second chance, a bigger, more impactful role than the one she had lost. It was a chance to be part of the solution, not just a victim of the problem. "Thank you, sir," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I won't let you down." Cho nodded. Then his gaze fell upon Tom. The young man braced himself for the inevitable. Tom Cho said, his voice softening slightly, "You're young, you're ambitious, and you made a mistake. You followed a toxic culture instead of your own moral compass. You are being let go from Majestic Airlines." Tom's shoulders slumped in defeat. But Shano added, "I'm a believer in teachable moments. I'm going to make a call to a friend of mine who runs a logistics company, a trucking company. They need dispatchers. It's a tough job, long hours, a lot of stress. But you'll learn about what it means to respect schedules, to treat every single delivery with the same level of importance. You'll learn that a contract is a contract. After a year, if you've proven yourself, you can reapply for a position at this airline in the cargo division, and you'll work your way back up the right way." It wasn't mercy. Not really. It was a form of corporate purgatory, a chance at redemption, but one that would be hard-earned. Tom, to his credit, accepted his fate with a newfound humility. "I understand, sir. Thank you." As Susan and Tom left the office, their futures irrevocably altered. David Chan picked up his phone. He had one more call to make. He dialed the number for the legal department. "It's Chan," he said. "That incident yesterday, the passenger, Caroline Harrington." "Yes, her. I want you to draft a letter to her husband. He's a senior partner at the law firm of Sullivan and Cromwell. Isn't he one of our primary legal counsels for corporate acquisitions?" He paused, a cold, predatory smile spreading across his face. "Yes, that's the one. I want the letter to inform him that due to the deeply unprofessional and reputationally damaging actions of his wife towards members of our board, we will be terminating our multi-million-dollar retainer with his firm effective immediately. And I want you to include a transcript of the conversation from the lounge. Let him see exactly what kind of liability his wife has become." The karma wasn't just personal. It was about to become very, very corporate. The phone call that had gotten a lounge team fired was now about to cost a prestigious law firm one of its biggest clients, all because one woman couldn't stand the thought of two young, successful black women sitting in front of her on a plane. The ripples were turning into a tidal wave. The fallout from the phone call was far from over. As Maya and Nia Sterling soared across the Atlantic, basking in the glow of vindication and sipping vintage champagne, the shockwaves were just reaching the shores of Caroline Harrington's meticulously curated life. and they were about to hit with the force of a tsunami. Caroline's husband, Jonathan Harrington, was a man who inhabited the rarefied air of corporate law. A senior partner at Sullivan and Cromwell, one of the most powerful and prestigious law firms in the world. He was a titan in the field of mergers and acquisitions. His world was one of billion-dollar deals, of navigating the treacherous waters of corporate takeovers, and of maintaining an unblemished reputation for discretion and ruthless efficiency. He was in a high-stakes negotiation for a major tech merger when his personal secretary, a prim and proper woman named Eleanor, interrupted him something she had been explicitly instructed never to do. "I'm sorry, Mr. Harrington," she whispered, her face pale, "but it's a priority 1 courier from the sterling Chenault conglomerate. The instructions were to deliver it to you personally and immediately." Jonathan's blood ran cold. Sterling Chenault. They were one of the firm's biggest clients. He had personally handled their recent acquisition of Majestic Airlines, a deal worth billions. An urgent hand-delivered message could only mean one of two things: a massive new deal or a catastrophic problem. Excusing himself from the negotiation, he retreated to his sprawling corner office with its panoramic views of the Manhattan skyline. He took the thick, elegant envelope from Eleanor and slid it open with a silver letter opener. Inside were 2 documents. The first was a formal letter, printed on heavy watermarked stationery. The second was a multi-page transcript. He read the letter first. It was from David Chenault, the CEO of Majestic Airlines, and a man Jonathan knew well and respected deeply. The letter was short, brutal, and to the point. It detailed an unfortunate and deeply troubling incident that had occurred at the Atlanta airport involving his wife, Caroline. It spoke of defamatory, racist, and utterly unacceptable behavior directed at senior members of our executive family. The letter concluded with a single, devastating paragraph. "Given the egregious nature of this incident and the direct reputational risk it poses to our brand and our leadership, we find that we can no longer in good conscience maintain a professional relationship with a firm whose senior partnership includes an individual so closely associated with such behavior. Therefore, effective immediately, the Sterling Chenault conglomerate and all of its subsidiary holdings, including Majestic Airlines, are terminating their retainer and all active calculation files with Sullivan and Cromwell. We wish you the best in your future endeavors." Jonathan Harrington felt the world tilt on its axis. He sank into his leather chair, the letter trembling in his hand. Their retainer with Sterling Chenault was worth over $15 million a year. It was one of his flagship accounts, a cornerstone of his reputation within the firm. To lose it was a disaster. To lose it like this, it was unthinkable. Then, with a sense of dread, he picked up the transcript. It was a word-for-word account of the conversation in the VIP lounge. He read with a growing sense of nausea. He saw his wife's entitled demands, her snide remarks, her casual, venomous racism. He read the calm, professional responses of Susan Fisher and the cool, cutting replies of the Sterling twins. He saw the name of their father, Robert Sterling, and the pieces clicked into place with a horrifying, sickening finality. His wife hadn't just insulted 2 random passengers. She had picked a fight with the daughters of the man who had just become one of the most powerful figures in global business, a man Jonathan had spent months courting and advising. She hadn't just been rude. She had taken a wrecking ball to his career. The phone on his desk buzzed. It was the managing partner of the firm, a man whose wrath was legendary. Jonathan answered it, his hand still shaking. "My office now," was all the man said before hanging up. The walk from his office to the managing partners felt like the final mile of a condemned man. The news had clearly already ripped through the firm's upper echelons. When he entered, the entire executive committee was there, their faces grim and unforgiving. The letter from Chan was on the conference table, a damning indictment at the center of the room. There was no negotiation. There was no discussion. It was a swift, brutal amputation. "We've seen the letter, Jonathan," the managing partner said, his voice devoid of any warmth. "We've seen the transcript. You know our policy on actions that bring the firm into disrepute." Jonathan did. It was Clause 12B of their partnership agreement. It was a catch-all for behavior that could damage the firm's reputation or its client relationships. He had invoked it himself against a junior partner who had been caught in an insider trading scandal a few years back. He never in his wildest nightmares thought it would be used against him. "You have two options," the managing partner continued. "You can resign effective immediately with a severely reduced severance package and a non-disclosure agreement, so tight it will suffocate you. Or we can convene a full partnership vote to have you forcibly removed, and your transgressions will become a matter of public record within the legal community. Your choice." It wasn't a choice. It was an execution. Jonathan Harrington, a man who had stood at the pinnacle of the legal world, was finished. He had been brought down, not by a rival firm or a failed deal, but by the petty, bigoted arrogance of his own wife. He resigned. When he arrived home that evening, to their palatial estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, he found Caroline in the drawing room nursing a large glass of Chardonnay. She was still fuming, still playing the victim. "You will not believe what happened to me today." "Jonathan?" she began, her voice shrill. "I was treated so disrespectfully. These two girls and their father, they had me thrown off the plane, my platinum status gone." Can you imagine the humiliation? Jonathan looked at her. He looked at her perfectly manicured nails, her expensive yet tasteless designer clothes, her face flushed with wine and indignation, and for the first time in their 30 years of marriage, he saw her with perfect clarity. He saw the ugliness beneath the polished veneer. He saw the rot of entitlement that had finally irrevocably poisoned their lives. He placed his briefcase on the antique mahogany table. He took off his suit jacket and folded it neatly over a chair. Then he looked at her, his eyes as cold and dead as a winter sky. "Caroline," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, "I know what happened. I received a letter and a transcript. Her ranting faltered. A letter from who?" "From David Chan," he said. "And as a result of your humiliation, my firm has lost its $15 million a year contract with his company. And as a result of that, I have lost my job." Caroline stared at him, her wine glass frozen halfway to her lips. What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you, with your petty prejudices and your monumental arrogance, have single-handedly destroyed my career," he said, his voice rising with each word. "The career that paid for this house, the career that paid for your clothes, your cars, your clubs, your entire pointless existence." He was shouting now, a raw, primal scream of a man whose world had crumbled to dust. "Those girls you tried to bully. Their father is Robert Sterling. He owns the airline. You imbecile. You didn't just insult some passengers. You declared war on a titan. And you used my name, my reputation, as your weapon." He walked over to the bar and poured himself a stiff scotch, his hands trembling with rage. "I've been forced to resign. I'm a pariah at the firm I helped build. Our life as we know it is over. The invitations will stop. The fair weather friends will disappear. The club memberships will be revoked. We're ruined, Caroline, and it's all your fault." The truth, stark and brutal, finally penetrated Caroline's bubble of self-pity. The color drained from her face. The wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble floor, the red wine spreading like a pool of blood. But the karma train had not yet reached its final destination. There was one more stop. A week later in London, Maya and Nia Sterling delivered the keynote address at the Global Innovators Summit. They were a sensation. Their presentation on Kismet and the future of inclusive financial technology was met with a thunderous standing ovation. They were confident, articulate, and brilliant. They fielded questions from the world's top venture capitalists and tech journalists with an ease and intelligence that belied their years. After the summit, they were approached by a representative from the philanthropic arm of the Sterling Cho conglomerate. Their father and David Shano had been so impressed by their vision and so appalled by the incident at the airport that they had decided to act. The board has approved a new initiative, the representative explained. It's called the Majestic Grant for Emerging Innovators. It's a $10 million fund to support startups founded by women and people of color. And we would like you two to be on the selection committee. Maya and Nia were speechless. It was an incredible opportunity, a chance to pay their success forward on a massive scale. But there was more. The representative smiled. Furthermore, Majestic Airlines is launching a new advertising campaign. The theme is the new face of first class. It's about celebrating the diverse, brilliant, and accomplished people who fly with us. It's about showing that luxury and success are not the exclusive domain of one type of person. She slid a portfolio across the table. Inside were the mock-ups for the campaign. The lead photo slated to be on billboards in every major city, on the cover of every in-flight magazine, and on the homepage of their website was a stunning shot of two beautiful, confident, intelligent black women sitting in seats 1A and 1B, laughing together as they worked on their laptops. The tagline beneath the photo was simple, elegant, and powerful. Majestic Airlines. The journey is your destination. Your seat is earned. Maya and Nia looked at the photo and then at each other. They saw the irony, the poetry, the perfect karmic justice of it all. The very thing Caroline Harrington had so maliciously accused them of being a photo opportunity for a corporate brochure had become a reality. But it wasn't a token gesture. It was a statement. It was a paradigm shift broadcast to the world. Their image would now be the symbol of the new Majestic Airlines, a brand that stood not for exclusionary privilege, but for earned inclusive excellence. Caroline Harrington had tried to have them removed from the front of the plane. Instead, they had become the face of the entire airline. And somewhere in a quiet, lonely mansion in Greenwich, a disgraced lawyer and his humiliated wife would see that picture. They would see it online in newspapers, on television. They would be unable to escape it. And every time they saw the radiant, successful faces of Maya and Nia Sterling, they would be reminded of the day that a single, hateful act of prejudice had brought their entire world crashing down. The phone call hadn't just gotten a team fired. It had dismantled an empire of entitlement, and in its place, it had built a monument to justice. This story is a powerful reminder that the world is changing. The old guards of entitlement and prejudice are finding that their privilege is no longer a shield. It's a story about standing your ground, knowing your worth, and the incredible, often poetic ways that karma can balance the scales. The actions of one woman steeped in arrogance created a ripple effect that she could never have imagined, proving that true power isn't about the status you inherit, but the character you show. If this story resonated with you, if you believe in the power of karma and the importance of standing up against injustice. Please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more true life stories of drama twists and ultimate justice. Your support helps us continue to bring these important narratives to light. Thank you for watching.